Hi, this is Elisabeth Hancock, and welcome to the Great Awakening podcast. This week, I'm very excited to introduce Jordan Nuttall, who is actually going to be one of the speakers in our Tartarian and the Old World conference. And Jordan is a researcher on Tartaria. And anyway, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
well, thank you for having me on, Elisabeth. It's a pleasure. Basically what I'm trying to prove and trying to get across to the great majority of people is that Tartaria was a real place. It's a real location with real people that were very diverse. But today, in the modern world, it's just labelled as unknown lands. It's just a blanket term for something that we know nothing about. And then it's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, they've done an incredible job of eliminating it. And you've really got to ask yourself why, why eliminate an entire civilization of people, especially when you can see that it spanned the entire Northern Hemisphere. I mean, I find this ridiculous. What I wanted to talk to you about today was, I know that you have this amazing book and it refers to many different parts of Tartary, Tartaria. And I really wanted to explore anything in the book around Tibet. I know you talked about India, and that sort of borders onto Tibet and China as well, because I can see that this part of the world, 12,000 years ago, they had some supposed ETs crashing their craft, and then they interbred into the Asian, Indian, Chinese, and they sort of, supposedly brought the brown skin and all this sort of stuff. So tell me, what does your book say about these parts of the world? Just thinking about skin color and, how they look and things like this. What were these Tartarians, what did they look like? The ones that you see in India, Tibet, China?
Well, from what my understanding is, from what I've derived from the books that I do have in my possession, it seems to be a Muslimic style where we are talking brown-skinned people. And this isn't just to say this is the whole range of Tartary or the Tartary people. This is just one account from a book. So we've got to bear that in mind. But we're talking the Muslimic clothing that's it's very stylish with top quality fabrics.
Yeah. Did any of them have white skin and red hair? Because I know, we're talking about this quite a lot, that this sort of white skin, red hair seems to be quite prominent around that sort of, the Russian Tartary, this sort of area. Does anything like that come out in your book?
No, I have seen a lot of mentions of that online on various different things, but in terms of the book, there's nothing like that, unfortunately. But so I'm not all the way through it yet, so there could well be. Yeah.
But it's more like darker skinned. And so the Mughals in the book, are they depicted as being darker skin and Chinese looking, or are they white with the red hair like Genghis?
Yeah.
Okay. So Genghis Khan, I know, he's supposed to be white with red hair or maybe blonde hair. There's nothing like that depicted in the book.
Well, it's funny you say that, because he's actually depicted as Asian descent like the rest of the Tartars in the book, really.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But it is strange, because then you look at the history and in different points we've got contradictory accounts, and then when you read them all and you gather them all together, they don't make sense together. You've got, like you've just said, you understood that it was white skin, red hair, and then I'm pretty sure from when I grew up going through school, I was always under the assumption that it was brown skinned, big black beard, big black hair. That was what I was taught in school.
Yeah. As you know, I mean, I researched these areas, and it was discovered that he was part of a clan which was white-skinned, blonde-haired, red hair. This sort of red hair seemed to be quite dominant around that area, around what we would see as Tartaria, which is sort of Russia, China, Mongolia, around that area. And
the continent, really. It span over the full continent,
It did. And in fact, I mean, I've seen many maps where Tartaria goes over the entire Northern Hemisphere. You can see with the architecture, can't you? In, Japan, Sweden, Australia, America, it's all that same old world architecture, which we're told is built in the Victorian times, the 1800s. But
always labeled Greco-Roman, and then you look into the history of these structures. Like I've got a few in the town I currently live. I've spoke about them on Guy's podcast. But we've got a 1-year construction time for a building, an enormous building, sandstone, granite. We're talking premium materials, but every single furnishing is ornamental. And as you said, with the spiritual side of things, I mean, the knowledge and the geometric precision of these buildings, that knowledge has had to come from somewhere. And like you say, with the cymatic frequency and what they're called churches these days, who knows what they were really called? But
Yeah.
you've got the organs and the frequencies, and you can't just, if it was that common knowledge, we could do it now. Me and you or the wider population could recreate this sort of equipment, but we can't. So this knowledge has been given from, like you say, off world. It's come from somewhere, and it's not here now. If that makes you wonder where, yeah.
And what's so interesting is because the sandstone, the granite, so anything with high crystal content, when you, yes, but also when you place it on the ley lines, it can create a rip between dimensions. And so all of these these old, like monoliths, megalithics, the sacred sites that they have, where so many people believe that they used to go there and they used to try and connect to beings, entities from the worlds, from other dimensions, essentially. And then we've got the same thing with these buildings. Now, I hear what you're saying in terms of like energy generation and being an energy generator. And I absolutely, totally agree that all of these ley lines and the buildings and the star forts and, the castles and pyramids and all these things, massive energy generators. But I also think that there's a multidimensional aspect to this, because the more I learn about spirituality, I suppose, and I don't mean that in terms of religion or anything like that. I see it more as an advanced technology myself, like spiritual tech is what I call it. And the more I research about this, the more I understand that the only way that any of this stuff makes sense is if we're talking about multiple dimensions and portals, which is why I feel we've been stapled down into one dimension, into 3D, one dimension. And that's what we're seeing around us now, is a one-dimensional reality. But I don't think that we are a one-dimensional reality. I think we're multidimensional beings. We have the evidence of this in our brain, because our brains can actually map up to 11 dimensions. I think there's probably another one in there somewhere. We can connect with multiple dimensions around us. And I suspect that the old world were doing this, because I can't believe it's something that we can suddenly do now and they couldn't do, because I can see that they had all this advanced technology. I think they had mobile phones. I think they had AI. I think that they had all the technology that we're being introduced back into our world now. I think it all came from them, and they've deleted what they can, these parasite elites. They've deleted what they can. Anything that they can't delete or they can use, they've rebranded it and reintroduced it back into our world. And it shows that these old world, they had this advanced technology. And I think that they could connect to other dimensions, which, thinking about in terms of, our myth stories and our legends and things like this, mermaids, dogmen, all these different beings and things, I mean, what are your thoughts? Could these be real things from our world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe spirits. And so what I believe the body we have now is comes from the earth. It's just a material body that our soul is controlling at this, whatever the period of life this is. That there might have been more life before this that I can't remember, that you can't, that any of us can remember. But I believe that when we pass in the physical world and we get buried, so the body's going back to the earth, I believe the soul passes on, and like you said, to the other dimensions. It's such a broad topic. It's very interesting. But I mean, what do you think on it? Afterlife, and in terms of things like that.
Well, our consciousness doesn't die. I mean, there have been enough studies on that, and people having near-death experiences. And I mean, there are just hundreds of books written on this now. And I researched this a lot for my first book, actually. And yeah, our consciousness doesn't die. The physical body dies. I'm beginning to think that the true nature of reality is more like that we incarnate when we want to experience a physical reality or want to have a physical existence or something like that, you know? I think when we are pure consciousness, we know everything, we see everything, we hear everything. So we drop down into lower vibrations of energy, because that's what physical matter is, in order to be able to experience touch sensations, these sorts of things. And that's what I feel. And I feel that it's our ego that, if you like, translates different frequencies, because we know that the world is made of energy, vibrational frequency, and the brain, if you like, translates that into a physical experience. And because of that, because our brain is like the interface, you know, the mind is like the interface, I think that it's easily hijacked. I think that there are aggressive entities in the multiverse as well as there are benevolent entities. And I think that regressive entities, probably billions of years older than we are, know how to hijack spiritual tech, you know?
Yeah, manipulate, yeah.
Yeah, they know how to manipulate. They know how to manipulate physicality, know how to manipulate, you know, anything. I mean, you know, shapeshifter, the concept of shapeshifter is talked about in just every single cultural story, you know, our ancient texts.
What about skinwalkers, for example?
Right, tell me about Skinwalker.
Well, Navajo County, is it, in America? I've seen
Yes. Yes.
See, with Skinwalker Ranch, as much as I'd like to believe it, you've got to give it a pinch of salt, I think, given it's a TV show. But
Yes.
But I mean, there's a lot of odd occurrences going on that they can't just all be labelled as just coincidences or just one-off occurrences. I mean, there's been people that have seen like humongous, like men-shaped, well, not men-shaped, but they're like wolves in the shape of a man chasing them. And then we've seen trailers damaged with claws, enormous rips on the sides down caravans. We've seen, I think on one of them, they've actually found a tuft of fur on some fencing, and they tested the fur, and that come back as we didn't know what it was.
Now, what's interesting about Skinwalker Ranch is that it's actually on top. It's built on top, like a huge crystal sort of network underneath. So it's rocks with high crystal content underneath. So all it has to do is be built on like many ley lines crossing.
Yeah.
That in itself creates a huge surge of energy, which can rip the fabric of time, I suppose.
And that's where these creatures could come from. Because, like I say, shapeshifters, as far as we're aware, that's not something native to the world we seemingly live in.
Not now, it isn't.
Not now, but
it's talked about in all of our ancient texts, cultural myths, everything. You know, these things are all talked about.
Where have they come from? Yeah, like you said, that's where it ties into the other dimensions. Yeah.
And I think we're already surrounded by an invisible field of energy, which contains entities at every level. You know, interdimensional beings, because it's interdimensional, they don't have physical bodies, which means that they're like parasites and they just latch onto us. I think that's what we have going on in our world now. I think the Vatican probably let them in. And if the Vatican didn't let them in, then it would have been let in at some point with CERN or the Philadelphia experiment, something like that. All these different things that they've been doing, they've been playing around with breaking through into other dimensions. And either they're crazy, these people, and they have no idea what they're doing, or they're trying to do that because they're trying to let the interdimensional beings in, because they're trying to create chaos.
Well, like you said, they mentioned with CERN, I think on the website, it openly states that they are trying to open a portal. I mean, anyone can go on Google now and have a look, and it says clear as day that they are trying to open a portal. It doesn't specify the portal to where. One can only imagine. And there's been a lot of strange accounts of people that live nearby CERN seeing strange things, and I've looked into it myself. One of the CERN sites, when the Hadron Collider were turned on, there was what looked to be huge swirls and like lightning spirals in the sky above CERN. So it makes you think, have they opened a portal? I mean, who knows?
I think, yes, I think they definitely have in the past. I think the Vatican has opened portals as well. I mean, I sort of see the world or Earth like a big dandelion, or even the universe like a big dandelion. And each of those sort of seeds, with the little flower bit on, each of those is a different realm. And I think it was Professor Highshed, but he was the one that said that the Galactic Federation is waiting for humans to wake up to what space is and what UFOs are. And I think that tells us that means that space isn't what NASA is telling us that's what space is, which means it's something different. So if it's something different, then what is it? Well, I think it's this multidimensional sort of ball. And it's just literally like different realms, different frequencies. We access different worlds, different realms through frequency. And we can see that with the old magic, with the sound and symbols and things like this. This is all changing the holographic field. It's changing the vibrational frequency. We can see with the Anunnaki, they used to use the Ankh and different things like that to be able to sort of walk through into other dimensions. I think that they were a transdimensional species, which means that they came from another dimension.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, the amount of information and technology that's withheld, I mean, like they say, there's nothing new under the sun. I believe that the powers that be, the elite, the parasite, as our friend Guy calls them, that I believe they've got it, and we slowly get it dropped back to us. And like say, the Ankh, that's also shown consolidated from the emerald tablets, also through Egyptian carvings that you can go and have a look at yourself. I mean, it's there, clear as day, the Ankh. And then tying in from what you said earlier with technology, I mean, you've got carvings that look like they're depicting handbags or watches or mobile phones. I mean, we're going back to what we're told is hammer and chisel days and horse and buggies. So where's the phone come from?
Yeah, so let's take that and put that into the old world. It's like there's a big link. There's a missing link, isn't there? We've got the old world with this amazing architecture, this incredible world. In books about Atlantis, where people have channeled information from Atlantis, they've seen then that people were using mobile phones. They were using all the same technologies that we're using today, but they were using a different type of energy source. They weren't using electromagnetic energy waves that we use. And interestingly, entities and beings can travel through electromagnetic energy waves. So if you open a portal and then you allow all these entities and beings to basically travel through these waves, they can come through computers. And if you then think, well, previous world, they had a different type of energy, possibly scalar energy, which is the one that Nikola Tesla used. So it's sort of showing me that we had this old world which was working really, really well. I think it ran for millions of years. I suspect that it was the tail end of what we call Atlantis, Lemuria. And so all of this sort of architecture and the continent of Atlantis or city of Atlantis sinking, we still have the rest of the world, which is still, still working. And then we bring it to modern day. What's the missing link between there? Did something invade our planet and literally just put us all under a spell so that we just don't know what's going on at all? Or, is Tartaria, like, how many hundreds of years ago is it?
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, and we have theories of mud flood. Well, theories of mud flood, stories of mud floods in nearly every religion. Waters, like in the Bible, the waters fell from the sky, from above the heavens through the firmament. So, if the only explanation to have lost all this knowledge and these cities and just this great understanding of what life is, the only way for all this to have been taken away will be some sort of huge, enormous natural disaster. And when you believe in that we live in a created world, that everything is created for us, if you believe that, then you've got to believe that. I just find it hard to believe that there is natural disasters. Like we're talking earthquakes and stuff like that. They've all got to be influenced from something like this, the earthquake machine in Antarctica. So what I'm getting at here really is, who has got the power at that time in history to be able to create a huge mud flood with waters falling out the sky? Like I said, this is out of world power in this world. Like I said, there's a bad entity come in and managed to overpower the light and the good that we had on this planet, you know, and the peace and the diversity. Because you can't build these structures with this precision if anyone's fighting. You know, everyone's got to be focused, and it's their art, it's the craft. This is what they want to do: create beautiful structures, but beautiful structures with more meaning than just visual looks. You know, you've got healing centers, like say energy centers. I would imagine there would have been places specifically to open portals, or maybe even communicate with other spirits or the gods, like you say.
Mm.
So yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm sort of trying to work it out like everyone else.
So broad, isn't it? And
I
it's
know.
so trying to pick apart what is true. I'll try and with what I look at, I try and compound it with other things, like you say, in terms of old teachings and outer world presence. What can we see from old indigenous groups, from cave drawings, but not just singular cave drawings, ones that we can compare to ones that are found all over the world, like talking what appear to be flying saucers that will be found in a cave drawing in Tibet or China or somewhere in America near the Grand Canyon, with all very similar things. So that points you to the assumption that this is a real thing that has been seen across the world enough, and it's made enough of an impact for the people that lived on this earth at that point in time to draw it.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's come back to your book with Tartaria. And just think about these Tartary. So you have like the Uzbeks, Tartary, the Indian, the Crimean, all these different.
Long list of variations. Yeah, we must in that book there must be 10, 11 different variations of Tartary, different provinces or regions.
Yeah. And what date was that book published?
Well, I've got a 1788 copy and a 1758 copy, and they're both the same, other than the 58 copy has the lineage of kings, which has some mentions of Tartarian kings and princes in it, and that's not in the later one, which is strange. You know, we still have the king's lineage for every other country, but for China, it's gone, which is strange. I mean, it's obviously been removed, and 20 years isn't a relatively long period of time, really.
No. So what date were these? So that it was published in 1758, did you say?
Yeah.
And what date are they referring to? So they're talking about the history of Tartary.
At that point.
Okay, so it's
current history. Yeah, current history at the time. I've got editions 6 and 10. So it seems they did a new edition every 10 years, maybe updating it, or obviously, like I mentioned, they've been taking things out. So I'm trying to get hands on the earlier copies, but they don't seem to be, well, from what I've found online, I can't find anything.
I'm sure.
From the earlier ones. I'd love to get hold of the first copy. I don't know what that'd be. That might be late 17th century. It might be in the late 1600s. In which case, I'm sure that it would hold a lot more knowledge, because that's way before the reset. When we think the reset happened, it's before that period.
Yeah, yeah. I know that the Encyclopedia Britannica, the last mention of Tartaria was in 1771. And all publications after that, it was unlisted. So that's why I sort of think around that sort of the same period that I know many researchers say. I know Guy saying it's 1776, the same time that the same year that they did the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
And around the 1700, it seems to be. If you think about the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1771, you've got your book, something changed between 1758 and 1777.
Yeah. If it's within that timeline, the guy's saying there, now you mention it, which is quite a good thing to point out, really.
Yeah. So that's when things started to get changed, is around that 1770. And okay, so before that, so 1758. So what does it have for Russia? That area around, because Russia's huge. What does it have for the different Tartarian countries around that, within that, what we call modern day Russia today?
Well, I guess I can share my screen with you now, and I've got the book with me now, but I think it would be more fitting if I can share it on my screen, so we can all see it. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Right. Scroll down here. What about this? See what mentions I've got in here already.
Mm.
Right. So for starters, we've got. I will just mention first that there is a lot of words that look like they should have an S instead of an F. That is just due to how old English books were printed.
Okay.
So if there's a word like which is the same, it's an F. It should say the same. So you just bear that in mind when you read it. You change the F to S. But we've got the same country. So starting off labelled as a country already. But then, as you were mentioning Russia before, so let's see if this is just there's more definitions in terms of, so we've got Great Tartary, Chinese Tartary, they're all under different references. This is just the larger label of Tartary. But we've got Kalmuk Tatars at present acknowledge themselves subjects of Russia. Let's see what we've got here in terms of Russia. We've got no mentions of Russia on this one. Was there anything on there that sparks your intrigue?
Well, Tibet, which independent. So the Tatars of Tibet are powerful, that they're frequently at war with the Chinese. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The northern Tartary is cold, barren country, almost always covers snow. The southern Tatars enjoy a temperate climate.
So we've got descriptions on the soil, the climate, the people in general. We've got a description of, and that is not something that you would have if this is a blanket term for the unknown.
Yes, it's certainly. This is the 1958 book you've got here. Sorry, 1758 book you've got here, isn't it?
Yeah, this one is. Yeah. See what else we've got in the next mention. It's a great extract here. Let's jump into.
Mm.
So we've got the Empire of Uzbek Tartary. Tamerlane the Great from Uzbek Tartary founded this empire in the year 1400. So already from that, he's come from Uzbek Tartary, which is Uzbekistan today. He's come from there and founded this empire in the year 1400. So Uzbek Tartary was already a well-established empire at this point because he's come from there. So we're going further back than the 1400s here.
Mm.
Then that's what we can gather there. All the way up until the early 1700s.
And do you have a picture in there of Tamerlane the Great? Does it show a picture at all of him?
There's no photos in this, but I do have photos of him.
Turkey. Okay, that's interesting.
Thought I'd like this to be a nice inclusion.
Yeah, because Turkey is Anatolia.
Got a few mentions of different regions of Tartaria.
Chaldea. Okay, yeah.
I'll show you a picture of the map. I'll show everyone a picture of the map in this book, which is rather interesting as well.
Yeah.
And so I'll just skip to the map now.
Right.
Barbary, which today, by modern history, has never been a country. Barbary was a collection of islands. But in this book, it is described as a country. There is a section on Barbary.
Yes, you can see Morocco up the side, can't you?
And there's one strange oddity. I've never seen Britain over here on a map.
Yeah.
And then we've also got
England and Britain, yeah.
I'll go back on that side of the map. I just wanted to point out we've got New Holland at the bottom, which is Australia.
Oh.
So this is a very well labelled map of the provinces at that point in time. There's nothing unknown about this map.
And this map is what, 1758?
Yeah, I will point out this is a different map than what's in the 1788 version.
Mm.
The both maps have Tartary mentioned on them, but they're both different maps by different cartographers.
Okay.
It's got the ICC up here.
Yeah. The North Pole.
Roll to another photo of the map. Oh, that's from the later book, the 1788 version. I'm sorry about the blurry photo though. I do have both books with me now. If I get I'll go back on the camera.
Mm.
I'll get some good lighting. I'll be able to get the pictures up.
Well, I can see the Black Sea, which looks huge.
They're both very interesting maps.
Yeah, there's Poland, which is big. Russia. Something I've noticed that they continually do is they change the names of everything, and they're still doing it. They keep changing everything, literally, like, all the time. The
It confuses us, isn't it? If we don't know who we are, where we've come from, what's going on, it's just going to be constant confusion.
Well, we're easier to infiltrate, easier to control, but I think the reason that they change the name so much is because they don't want us to know about history.
Yeah. Like you say, because it's got to the point now, there's so many different names, you don't know what's what, you don't know what history's true. It's just it's like they've shuffled the deck and just chucked it out, and we haven't got a clue. But we're trying to figure it out. And I believe we'll know. One day we'll know. They can't keep this stuff a secret forever, because we've already cottoned on.
Well, you certainly can't eliminate an entire civilization forever. I suspect that they'll keep suppressing historical facts for as long as they're around, to be honest. But certainly somewhere as large as this, it's
A whole continent, yeah. You can't cover it up. And I mean, it's in plenty of old books. You don't really have to look far. And then in terms of the architecture, I'm in Britain. You can go to any city you want in Britain, and you're going to find some structures that don't really fit in or make sense. So on this one, we've got just for the watchers, but you don't have to go very far into this one. There's going to be a lot of people unhappy that I've used the highlighter in this book, but I'm not highlighting the earlier models for anyone that's that interested or bothered. But there we go. So this is talking about the divisions that the Earth is divided in. Quarter is also thrown into 3 divisions: the Empire of China, Chinese Tartary, and the Oriental Islands on the east; India, Uzbek Tartary, Kalmuk Tartary, and Siberia in the middle; Persia, Arabia, African, and Circassian Tartary, and Turkey in Asia on the west.
Is there any parts of that world which isn't Tartary?
It is all over Asia, Russia. It's all here. It could have well been a global empire. We don't know. I mean, there's got to be an explanation for why there's these structures in every country in the world.
Yeah, including Australia and Japan. And and it's the same looking structures. It looks like it's built by the same people, or if it hasn't been built by the same people, the reason it's the same is because it's using a type of technology which needs to be transferred and used in the same way. Hence, the buildings look the same.
It would be fascinating to see how these structures are built, how they built them, the precision. It's another map, Asia. Got Little Tartary, which is above the Black Sea. West Tartary.
In terms of building them, I think that they either used levitation or they used sound, just sound, and literally like cymatics, the structures built themselves.
Yeah, that is a theory. I mean, it would make sense. And they've obviously got the equipment and the knowledge to be able to do that sort of thing. When you look at the finished structures, and the star forts and the precision. Have you seen in the Amazon rainforest? So they cut it back and they found all the geometric structures there. That's a whole another portion of history that we know nothing about.
I know. I'm actually amazed that they're cutting it back and that they're letting us see what's underneath it.
I mean, it is a great shame they're cutting it back, really. But it's already brought some wonders to light. So who knows what's really under there? They do say there's a lost city in the Amazon rainforest, don't they?
Yeah, and apparently it held up to 1 million people.
Which would be very impressive to find. Think of the technology that would be left behind there. But it just seems like, I mean, if I was in charge of the world, that's what I'd do, focus on what were all old history, excavations on all these archaeological sites. Focus on that, see what we can learn from what they were doing. You know, because with the pyramids and stuff, we obviously didn't build the pyramids with wooden buggies and stuff like that. Like I said, when you think about levitation, that seems a lot more plausible for the size of the structure. Have you seen the pyramids? If anyone's seen them in person, they look big on photos, but when you see them in person, you just can't comprehend the enormity of it all. You can't fit it all in your eyes. It's massive.
I know. They definitely weren't built by hand. So it was either sound. I mean, you've got Coral Castle.
Yeah, we're going to bring that up. Yeah, he's got a book out, I believe, hasn't he? He wrote a book.
I'm not too sure. I just know that he was definitely using sound to create what they call a castle. And you can see, I write about this in my second book actually. So you can see that the polygonal walls that they have in Peru, these huge massive blocks have got little like protrusions coming out, and it's like it's where someone would sort of hold it, not to lift it, but to guide it.
Yeah.
And so it looks like someone could have used the frequency, the sound, like blowing it with a whistle or something, and then other people were sort of just lifting these blocks like they were, Smarties, and just putting them on top of each other. And I can definitely see that could have, that seems to be quite logical, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only plausible thing that I can comprehend, at least. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things out there that once we figure them out, it's just mind blowing. But like just the technology alone on how to levitate the object, like what are you using to generate the frequency, the noise? Is it a sort of thing that's like a device that you turn on, put on the floor, and then you've got 10 meters around you squared and you can move anything? It's so interesting. What do you think?
I think that they are using sound like a whistle, and that particular frequency, and possibly even lifting everything around it. But you can possibly actually direct the frequency into that item, and then you can use your mind. Because I talk about this a lot in my second book, because I talk about psychic abilities in my second book, and I think that the mind intention directs energy. So if we're looking at this in terms of sound, we got sound, the mind can direct the sound. And we can see with telekinesis. Telekinesis is when someone can move, an object with their. So I think it's that type of thing. It's using the mind to direct the energy in a way which allows you to levitate it and move it. And this is why, again, I think our ancestors, they had this spiritual tech, they had this advanced technology that we have either forgotten or we've been put under some sort of a mind control spell. I mean, what I'm discovering is the regressive entities or aggressive races, that particular, the greys, the reptilians, they're master mind controllers.
No, and like you say, we've got the gradual over the past 100 years of the diet change. We've got vaccines, we've got stuff like that, fluoride. And this, over the course of hundreds of years, is going to have effect on consciousness. You know, with the pineal gland being calcified. It's a long process, but it's going to happen over a few hundred years. And like you mentioned, so you're saying for like levitation of objects, there is no technology. It's the person that is capable of doing it on their own.
It's using sound. It's using sound frequency, because cymatics is the physical manifestation of that sound. So, yeah, exactly. So using the sound, but directing it with the mind. So maybe like, blowing a whistle at that frequency, that exact frequency. And even using a symbol, like, holding up the ankh, or holding a, like some sort of a like shape, geometric shape, something like that, holding it up, using that, because that's spell work. And we've had like black magic, white magic, magicians, mages, we've had these for hundreds of thousands of years. And like I said, it's what I call spiritual tech, although that's more sort of to do with the human body. But you can see, for example, that in all the old stories, like in Japan, China, it's all over, the Nordics, they all talk about these advanced beings. They were holding like the Vajra, you know, like
Yeah.
the sword, the lightsaber, they were, you know, all holding these things. This is the old world. These are old world stories.
Yeah.
We've got the Hopi Indians. They were given 10 or advanced types of technology or advanced like things to use, one of which was a flying shield, and they could stand on the shield and it would fly.
Yeah.
And then they had some other things as well, you know, things that looked like a sword, and they were given 10 of these objects which allowed them to do things that we cannot do today.
Yeah.
There's the flying rocks. You know, the flying rocks comes up in, I think, Egyptian talks about the flying boats. I think it's maybe the Asians that talk about the flying rocks, and you can see those in Japan, where you can see these, you know, these huge rocks that look like they're like spacecraft or something, and yet they're just sort of like dropped on the ground in the middle of nowhere. So how would they fly on these rocks? Well, I think, again, it's using a certain type of frequency. They could tap into a certain frequency that would allow them to levitate. The Anunnaki used all these different advanced technologies. And that's why I think possibly what we're talking about here, that the Anunnaki, you know, or I think that we are the descendants of the Anunnaki as well. And they had all these advanced technologies. They were on off-planet or other dimension species themselves. They brought a lot of stuff into our world, including fauna, flora, you know, their technologies, all sorts of things. And I don't know what happened to them. I think they probably left, but I think when we were all living together in that way, we were using many different technologies. I also feel that many of us don't come from here as well. I think that there are all different types of races, civilizations who for some reason have all ended up here and have all forgotten everything.
Yeah. I think this plane is a place to learn. That's what I think.
Yeah, so maybe it's our souls that have come from somewhere else, and we've literally just incarnated to have a physical experience because someone forgot to tell us that, you know?
You know, out of my 25 years of living, that's the theory that I believe. That's what I give them all personally. I mean, don't get me wrong, you might ask me next year, that might change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what it is. Like, we aren't from here, but we're here to learn something. Learn how it feels to love, how it feels to care, to how it feels to build beautiful things, how it feels to be in a material world and have emotions. Because, like you say, in the different dimensions, there may not be material dimensions. It may be, and then you've got it's such a broad spectrum of things to think about, isn't it? So many avenues to go down.
But I think what you're saying makes sense. It's funny because I often, when I meditate and I'm asking, you know, what's the true nature of reality, I often see our world at the bottom, like on a sort of theater stage, and then all these rows of seats going all the way up. And it's literally like all the different beings and entities from different realms, you know, sort of all up there and all looking down on the theater stage, you know? And so it reminds me of what you're saying, in that we have incarnated to have a physical experience, and actually we're co-creators, you know, super manifestors. We can create anything we want with our imagination, our creative thoughts, but something came or something got in the way, blocked us up from that knowledge and memory. And made us sort of, well, not made us, you know, but created this boring corporate world where we're all towing the line, you know, and following, you know, doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. But actually what this world has always been is it's run by human consciousness. It's run by us. So all something had to do is come and hijack human consciousness, because, you know, it's using our creator abilities. And it's siphoning, it's harnessing our ability to create and manifest all of this reality around us and using it to create their reality.
And once you're awake to this sort of thing, you can see it around you in tainting every part of life, tainting the food in life, tainting, in the pharmaceutical sectors, really. That's just, it's all based from Rockefeller's petroleum-based medicine system, isn't it? And what was around before that? Natural medicines that worked for all them years before, but suddenly they don't work. So there's definitely at some point around that Rockefeller himself. Where did he get the influence to do this? Did he wake? I don't think for 1 minute him by himself just thought, you know what, I'm going to change humanity for the worse just for my own financial gain. There's got to be a lot more players involved, but they've needed the knowledge again to be able to conquer the higher knowledge of the old world. So then this, you can see what I'm saying, because the old world is so technologically advanced. We've got, like I say, the Vajra, we've got levitation devices for the construction of the buildings. I even believe in the old world there were people called breatharians, where they didn't eat. They just and I want to just mention that there's a man in India, I believe, where he doesn't eat. He just looks every morning and evening during sunrise and sunset. He grounds himself outside and he looks at the sun, and he doesn't eat. He just does that. And I think there was a team of researchers that went and they stayed with him. I think it was something like 57 days. And for that 57 days, he didn't eat anything. It was just every morning and every evening, just looking at the sun. And that was enough. So I can believe it. I really can believe it.
I think there are some indigenous tribes as well who
still doing it,
yeah, who do it. And yeah, I mean, I think it only makes sense. And that's why I feel like we are actual creators of reality. And that's how we've ended up with such a weird reality, because our energy has been siphoned off and used to create someone else's reality, not the one that we want to. And that also explains these incredible buildings. It explains this amazing old world that we had, that human consciousness was creating it. We literally, like immediate manifestation, we were creating. And it would make sense that a lower vibrational being or a controlling being, human even, would want to come along and say, well, I fancy being God. So I'm going to hijack all of this human consciousness and use it to create the world that I want to live in. And they've simply had the greater energy, the stronger energy for decades and decades, simply because they know how to do it. And I sometimes wonder if maybe they were just the survivors of that. There was some sort of catalytic event and they just happened to be the survivors. And because they knew what was happening, it gave them an opportunity to play God. And
you are right.
Shift the world in the way that they wanted to go. But on a positive note, it means that we can shift our world back as soon as we want to do it.
Enough people need to realize, like you say, I believe we all consciously create what we want to see in the world. But it's like, so you create everything. When you really think about it, you create friendships, you create love for people, you create hobbies, all these things you create because you are the creator. So it is. It's an amazing topic to really think about.
Well, it's certainly big. Okay, well, I know we're nearly at the hour now. So just tell the audience, what are you going to be talking about at the Tartarian conference on June the 14th?
Well, what I want to do is point out the specific boundaries of what Tartary was in the 18th century, with with detailed maps, detailed explanations of various references, not only from that book, but various other books, like I say, the Encyclopedia Britannica, various other geographical works. But I want to create it's going to be an experience where you really, if you watch, you're going to understand what Tartary was. You're going to understand who the people were. For the best of my ability, you're going to understand what they look like, broad range. You're going to understand the political affinities, how they've influenced empires over the world, such as India and China and the Qing dynasty. It's just like a religious, cultural, political view of Tartary. If you on the conference, you're going to hear a multitude of different angles. I'm focusing on more religion, politics, and just overall what the entity was. you know, give people a clear view of what we know to be true.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's fantastic. I look forward to seeing your presentation and being part of it with you on June the 14th.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.